Mercedes go all in on Hamilton. Mercedes have finally started to get it together after a great race in Australia, as they got their first podium with Hamilton finishing behind Verstappen. The new upgrades seem to be paying off for the Silver Arrows now, just like Wolff said. But Wolff has said something recently that might turn out to be either very good or very bad for the team because of the situation they are in right now. How will the shocking statement turn out? We take a look in this video, so stick around and let's get it on. After doing much better at the Australian Grand Prix, Mercedes thinks they are starting to get on terms with Ferrari and Aston Martin, while also putting some pressure on Red Bull, who have been the leaders so far this season.
Spearing off into the barriers at turn 3.
After having trouble with the W14 car in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia at the beginning of 2023, the team went to Melbourne last weekend and did much better in practice and in the race, as Hamilton finished second. At the start of the race, both Mercedes drivers got ahead of Max Verstappen's Red Bull. However, George Russell lost out during a red flag and then had to leave the race because of a technical problem, and Max Verstappen then passed Lewis Hamilton when the race restarted.
Hamilton goes into turn 1 behind Max Verstappen. Bottas is being challenged all the while.
James Allison, the team's longtime technical guru, talked about the race weekend in Mercedes' standard debrief video. He painted a mostly positive picture as the team continues to try to win races and compete for the championship. When asked what the main lessons were from the weekend in Australia, Allison said, "Overall, a sense of quiet satisfaction that we have moved the car forward. That's from a performance point of view, we probably got as much as it is able to give right now. That happiness, of course, is tempered by the disappointment that we only got one car to the flag and that George was not able to show what he was capable of in the car on race day, having performed very strongly up to that point in the weekend. We didn't have huge breakthroughs, but we moved forward a little bit. We put a small amount on the leader's Red Bull, and we are starting to get on terms with and maybe just nose a whisker in front of the Ferraris and the Aston Martins." James Allison further noted that it's difficult to say whether their performance was due to track-specific factors or changes made to the car for the weekend. Allison stated that they expected to be in the fight with Ferrari and Aston Martin and were pleased to come out on top, but the performance level was not markedly different from that in the other two tracks so far this year. He also pointed out that Red Bull was a little bit off form in qualifying, which closed up the field. Allison said that their car's relative pace to Ferrari and Aston Martin has been close-ish all year, and they were a little bit on the better side, but it wasn't a seismic difference.
Hamilton now will try and tuck in behind him, and Verstappen immediately darts over to the right-hand side.
Finally, he noted that time will tell how much of the good results from the weekend were track-specific and how much came from the changes they made to the car, as they will go to some very different tracks in the next few weeks. However, what is interesting is Toto Wolff's statement after the race, which did raise some eyebrows. More on that in a second. So, now that Mercedes finally had a good race, could this convince Hamilton to re-sign a new contract? His current contract with Mercedes ends at the end of this season, and the team and driver haven't worked out a deal to keep it going. There was some hope that the problem would be solved quickly last winter, but the talks have been put on hold until Wolff and Hamilton can find a good time to talk. But since Hamilton hasn't said for sure what he'll do in 2024, Mercedes might not have a good replacement if the 7-time world champion decides at the last minute that he doesn't want to keep going.
Verstappen, Hamilton, and then Charles Leclerc with Valtteri Bottas on the inside. Gasly.
And while Mercedes wants Hamilton to commit to a new deal, Wolff insisted that he is so relaxed about the situation that he is not even thinking about any potential plan Bs or other options beyond the 7-time world champion. I think it may sound naive, but I really struggle to think of a plan B. If my plan A is still the one that is my favorite, I don't want to engage in discussions with other drivers because I'm happy with the ones that are in the team, that's for sure. At the moment, there is no plan B, it's Lewis. While Wolff acknowledged that it would not be ideal if Mercedes had to scramble around for a new driver later this year if Hamilton did elect to quit, he was confident such a late call would not happen. I think that he would tell us early enough, added Wolff. I don't think that Lewis would say, "I can't do this anymore, I'm out of here tomorrow." He would always feel the responsibility for the team. He wouldn't leave the team alone. Drivers can always take decisions like that, but he wouldn't let us down. But then I think if you believe that you're a team that is attractive for others, you will find solutions.
I believe he's duty-bound
And it also seems that Hamilton doesn't think about his future, since before the Saudi Grand Prix a few weeks ago, he expressed his love for his team and gratitude for everyone who has been on the journey with him. He also said that he doesn't envision being anywhere else and doesn't see himself quitting because he's not a quitter.
Hamilton crosses the start-finish line and Max Verstappen makes his way.
However, he admitted that being with the team isn't giving him much since he's been there and done that many times before. And despite all of that, he said that he is trying to be patient and work with the team to get to a good place, and he would not go anywhere else. Well, can this race change the course of the Mercedes season, and in doing so, convince Hamilton to stay with Mercedes for at least one more year? Even Russell says that he would reassess his claim that Red Bull could win every race this season because the wind tunnel data looked so promising.
He's about a third of a car in front by the time they get out of the corner.
Statistically, the Australian GP looked pretty good for Mercedes, with Lewis Hamilton finishing just 0.1 seconds adrift, a first-time down-under winner Max Verstappen. If you just read the result on paper, it's a bit like the old days of 2021, before the Silver Arrows lost their mojo.
So there's the DRS for Verstappen, he's getting extra pace.
But of course, the result of a crazy race that was red flagged a record 3 times was even more off when it ended behind the safety car. In fact, the Red Bull was still much better at racing than the Mercedes, especially under DRS, as we've already seen this year. Once that is turned on, it seems like Adrian Newey and his team have come up with a reheat that works like a fan. Still, it was a better experience for the Brackley team than either Bahrain or Jeddah. But Mercedes hadn't changed much about their hard-to-drive W14 other than fine-tuning the setup based on a better understanding of the car as a whole and adding some underfloor strakes to change the flow of air. This was before the big update that was due around Imola time, so their qualifying performance was the biggest surprise of the first 2 days.
Sir Lewis Hamilton, as he is now, crosses the line and wins.
There was also the Alonso-Hamilton duel, which, albeit not as thrilling as some other times, both of them said reminded them of when they used to work together at McLaren. It was great to see how friendly they were, and it was also nice to see Red Bull's top designer Rob Marshall, who is talented but doesn't get enough credit, on the podium. Typical of him, the effervescent George Russell thought that if both Mercedes and Max had been out there, they could have fought for the win, and even though the run times might suggest otherwise, he is in the best position to say that, so it's important to listen to him.
Pierre Gasly's kept his place as well, ahead of the McLaren of Daniel.
Mercedes definitely got faster this weekend, both in a single lap and in a race. They made the most of what they had, and now they can look through the data to improve their cars as much as possible until that change comes out. And we can only hope it wasn't just a spike in one part of the route. What do you think? Can Mercedes be as competitive as they are now without Hamilton? And was the Australian GP just one bright light in the sea of darkness? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.